Hey, how's it going, boys? What is up? Sora's back again. Hey, 2 videos in one day. Woo! I don't know how to start this video, but I guess this video is about me talking about my EX Plus themes for the upcoming Guild War, which is, by the time you see this video, is tomorrow, I suppose. Tomorrow or like 12 hours or some shit. I don't know. I can't remember. I don't really know when am I gonna put it up, but I can show off like what are my plans and probably tips or ideas of what you guys can actually do to increase your damage or whatever stuff like that, I suppose. So first and foremost, this is my setup, my character setup for non-assault time, which is more than enough, because what I plan to do is just the mechanic thing, which is the 2 buttons, and to make it more consistent is just I press Octo S1. It's just 100% consistent already. You get to 20.5, 20.6 mil, something like that. You get it? I tend to get it around that number. And I'm pretty damn sure that's the amount I need, because I'm probably gonna get like the extra earth buff thingy, which adds around 10% permanently, more or less. Yeah. So my grid is kind of like, it's a little bit stacked, because one thing's for sure, because I do have the 3rd skill on Opus, but keep in mind is that you don't exactly need this. You really don't need this at all, because if you really want to get this what's that, consistent damage, I really think you only need at least 3x. 3x is like a bare minimum. If you have more, that's actually better, honestly. If you just need 3 axes to full limit break, and the other weapons to fill in your magna slots is getting Medusa harps. If you can max that out, it's even better. But if not, I think even the likes of having 0 stars is still okay, because it doesn't have a full limit break anyway, right? That weapon. So you just get 0 stars. You can just fit it in there. That's fine. But I really think you should also put in the Opus as well, just so you can get extra this thing here. Just ignore if this is not around. But yeah, if you just get the standard Opus full limit break it, I really think that's honestly more than enough, because my grid is super stacked already, all thanks to Opus and like all these plus marks and shit. But the other thing is that it's like you just need Medusa harps and 3 axes. That's really about it. And hopefully you have this to full limit break, but I really think you don't really need it to full limit break. I think just have it to like a skill level 10 fully upgraded SSR, yeah, is already good enough. And having both Ultima and Opus is pretty nice, because you do have you can actually put in both Ogi Cap and Chambers in there, just to increase your damage altogether. And the other thing is that you don't really have to use mechanic, because sometimes I do tend to feel that mechanic can be a little bit slow, because S1, S2 mechanic is super slow sometimes. But it's just because that I did upgrade my AK to full limit break, like, I don't know, I think 1 or 2 years ago or some shit. So I decided to just stick with mechanic anyway, because at full limit break mechanic you get the defend down to like 35%, I think. Yeah. And I remember I got this AK to full limit break because you could use Octo S3, and he just gets 130 meter, right? As long Octo has 130 meter, you can get him to Ogi twice. You can combo with like CT or whatever, right? If you actually have CT to full limit break, that is. So it'd be great to have him. So okay. So the other reason why I have this setup is because, well, I wouldn't use these 2 characters, by the way. But the reason why I'm using these 2 is quite obvious, because they're fucking gold ringed. And the other thing is that if you have Uriel as well, it's much better if you have Uriel, by the way. Because if you have Hangman, if you have both Hangman and Uriel at full limit break, Uriel can get full limit break, but it's like, as long as you have him at max limit break, it's already good enough. Or even 0 stars is good enough. So if you have both Hangman and Uriel, because this guy alone is gonna do all that freaking damage for you. Just as long as you can get consistent damage altogether, like you have like a standard grid, like just now I mentioned like a moment ago. As long as you have all those grid I was talking about earlier, you just have Octo to press S1 for you. He just does all that shit for you. Because probably if you have a max limit break Urel and this guy will probably do like fucking 5 million plus damage for you super easily in turn 1. Because you get 20% extra cap from this guy and Urel. Because Urel gives 10%, this guy gives another 10%. So you get 20% cap already. And then you get another cap from your Ultima or Opus, and then you get extra chain burst bonus shit. It's really, really easy to get damage as long as you have those cap and you have Octo to full limit break, and if you somehow ring that guy and get this guy to have Ogi cap or whatever. It's because this guy does all the fucking work for you. It's very, very easy to get damage as long as you just stacked it all on fucking Octo, because Octo does all the damage for you. So you don't really have to use these two characters. The other thing is like, okay, let me explain why I have these two characters besides the ring, okay? So, I mean, the other main reason why I left her in here is the fact that I kind of want her to be in here just to give like a more consistent damage, and because mechanic does give Octo 200 meter right off the bat anyway, so it doesn't really matter Octo's placements at all. So having Octo to buff the remaining two of these characters to give more consistent damage, plus the Earth Acti up will be stacked up or jacked up by Alex, right? So it just makes these two Ogi very, very consistently. Plus, not to mention, if you just ignored her ring, right, her gold ring thing, I did manage to roll 13% Ogi cap on her, and then she has her own Ogi cap EMP as well. So her damage is relatively high, like in comparison to the rest of like the other characters and such, right? So it just makes her Ogi damage very, very consistent that way. But yeah, like I said earlier, if you already have like all those weapon setups and shit, you don't really have to use them. SR Jin is another very, very good contender for that. You don't really have to use Sarasa. You can just put Jin in there. If you have Alex, now's a really good time to spark her if you are doing any spark, by the way. So yeah, you can put Alex in there, so it gives more damage to Jin. You need to level Jin a little bit though, but you don't really have to use Jin either. Another character probably I would suggest is like having Siegfried, I guess, because Siegfried does have like a relatively nice nuke right after his Ogi, so you can actually, if you manage to get like a relatively high Ogi cap roll on him for some reason or some shit, that's even better. Or if you already have like the, you know, that two certain summons I mentioned earlier, Hangman and Urel. If you already have that, then it's even better, right? It just increases his skill damage altogether, because those two summons increases your damage caps, which applies to everything that you do. It's not just like, oh, because you have like because like your chain burst and shit, this too doesn't do anything to him, right? Because his extra nuke is based on skill damage, which only be applied by the likes of this guy and a certain other Primarch summon. So if you have those, getting that 20 plus million damage is gonna be super easy for you. But honestly, if you ask me, right, if you have problems trying to just trying to nuke with your mechanic and Octo S1, just put in some extra nukes. I don't think that really is not really that bad, if you ask me. Just do some extra nukes that it will probably help you do a little bit more damage. I mean, if you have Siete as well with those two summons, I think you can reach that mark relatively easy as well. Or you could also do the other one, which is like if you have the class weapon, I think, if I recall correctly. I'm not too sure about that, because I know there is like the class weapon that you can get for Croissant, and you get the skill which gives extra damage or some shit. I can't remember which one was it, but you do get something like this, I think. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I think that's the one. Humanity. I think Humanity is the one. Yeah. Was it? I can't remember. I'm just pulling out of my ass. Oh, this one. Yeah, this one. You get extra damage after you use your charge attack. Well, I think skill damage kind of works as well, if you think about it. But it's not really that great. But yeah, you can use this. That's one example as well if you use croissant. But probably it's a lot better if you use it during assault time. But off assault time works as well if you use the, you know, the Huanglong setup and stuff. But if you do that, I think you have to use Octo S3 in order to get some meter, because if not, if you're off assault time, I don't think you have enough meter to get him all the way till 200, because he starts at 40, I believe. Yeah, he starts at 40 if if you have all the Juteds and max limit break at least. If that is if. This is a big if. If you don't, then it's gonna be relatively tough, or you could also do like the one that I tend to do. But this is the setup that the setup that I use for assault time. So you could do something like this as well. So this is like my assault time, where I use croissant class and I put Alex in front because the placement doesn't matter. Octo just needs to be in the back. That's really about it. And the other thing is that I use Ultima and I use Kaneshige as my sub weapon, because Octo needs that little extra meter from this weapon just so he can Ogi twice. That's really about it. If not, he would not be able to hit the second Ogi during assault time. I think he can, but I don't think he can. But at the same time, I've not really fully tested it yet, because I don't think I can test that with the training dummy, because the training dummy, if you Ogi, if you just use the pot, he gets 140 meter, which doesn't make sense, right? So yeah. But I really do think that you do need at least like Kaneshige to get it to work. And the other reason why I'm using Ultima as a main hand is because Earth Attack. I mean, the Earth Attack buff works exactly the same as his, right? But because I have to put him in the position 4, it's better that my MC actually use that. And so you can buff both MC, because MC, you're gonna nuke it with your Ultima first before this. Just so your second Ogi will be buffed already. So yeah, so MC is buffing yourself, and then you buff the rest of them. So it makes it even better. And the rest of it, the grid is mostly the same as my mechanic, honestly. And if I recall correctly, this is actually enough to just go with one button, if I recall correctly. But yeah, I just need to switch this to another. Yeah, this gives more stats. Yeah, there we go. So this setup allows me to do one button during assault time, because I just need to press that second Ogi from MC, and then this team just freaking kills, because I don't know, balance class. I mean, you don't really need to use this setup too. It's like if you have any sort of I would say, as long as you get like the grid I mentioned in the beginning of the video, and you have any sort of buffs that makes your damage very, very consistent, I think you're good enough already. And then if you want to make it even more consistent, you just need to press his S1, right? So you don't really need to put in too much effort for that. Especially when you have those two summons. If you don't have those two summons, that's fine. I would say you need at least one of them though. If you don't have one of them, then I think it's going to be relatively hard for you to reach 20 million. But if you rank your characters or whatever, then I think it's still fine. You just need to add like a little bit of nuke or whatever just to get that much. Besides that, yeah, I don't think there's really much else to say, I guess. But yeah, you could also use a croissant setup with Huanglong and stuff. I think it'll work. I haven't really fully tested myself, but I think it's possible only if you have those two summons thingy. But I do not have Uriel, so that's why it's not there. And lastly, before I close in the video, I know I have fucking death in there. There's no reason for my death to be there, because I haven't equipped it on my mechanic. Death is just there to be a fucking stat stick, okay? It has no reason to be there. It's just there to be a stat stick. Because I do not have like Uriel or whatever, so it doesn't really matter all that much. I'm just putting there just to bump up my stats altogether. So yes. So yeah, that's my EX Plus lineup, I guess, and my tips to whoever wants to do or try to OTK EX Plus relatively consistent, I suppose. I guess that's it. I don't know what else to say. Yeah, thanks for watching, I suppose. Like, subscribe. Bye.